What they were doing was they were trying to lure both Matt and Cassie down into the basement where they were going to murder them.
Murders, mysteries, unexplained stories, and our family's crazy opinions on them all. Join us now. The Family School of Thought is in session.
Okay, everybody, welcome to this week's edition of the Family School of Thought. I hope everybody's having a great week. Please hit that like button. We're counting, and then the share and the subscribe button. Our subscriptions up are a little bit, and we're really trying to work those numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so tell your friends about us too. Anyways, let's get going this week. Jess, let's hear some history facts.
I got first. I'm gonna remember we got some tidbits on some amazing facts. So it's a website. It's the title of the article is 125 interesting facts about practically everything. So and it's by Elizabeth Yuko, I think is how you say her name, Yuko. So this information is Sudan has more pyramids than any country in the world. So are you guys surprised by that? Not only does Sudan have more pyramids than Egypt, but the numbers aren't even close. While 138 pyramids have been discovered in Egypt, Sudan has around 255. So almost double what Egypt has.
Yeah, I am surprised at that. There are none in the United States, right? There's no pyramids in the United States.
I don't think so. I mean, in Las Vegas, yeah.
Wow. So Mexico would be the closest to.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I don't know. So, but I do have a history, unsolved mysteries fact as well. This one is involving JFK.
Oh my gosh.
And his missing brain.
What?
Oh, yeah. I did know that.
Yeah. So President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. I think a lot of people know that he was assassinated in Dallas, Texas on November 22nd, 1963, and an autopsy was performed soon after his death. It was recorded that his brain was removed prior to his burial, and the organ was stored in the National Archives National Archives after the autopsy. There are many theories as to why the brain was removed. Regardless of what the motive to remove his brain post-mortem or the most mysterious aspects of the brain's removal is the fact that it went missing from the National Archives. So they preserved it in National Archives and somehow it went missing. Some theorize that it went missing from the National Archives because his brother, Robert F. Kennedy, secretly removed it to prevent any analysis that would reveal that his brother had an illness or any illnesses or how many medications he had been taking at the time of his death.
Oh. That sounds likely.
Yeah, others believe that it was removed. The removal was orchestrated by the U.S. government because the organ might reveal that the assassination did not occur as the history books say it did, which is something that has been theorized forever. Yeah. According to the records from the House Committee on Assassinations, the National Archives was aware that the brain was missing, but decided not to pursue its whereabouts after disconcerting through an investigation that the brain's misplacement was not due to their error. So they found out it wasn't their fault and said, well, screw it. We won't deal with it. So to this day, the brain has never been located. So JFK's brain is somewhere out there. Who knows where? Yeah. I have a theory on this. Oh. We do organ donors, organ donations. What if maybe it was the government that took it away from the National Archives and said, let's place his brain in a cadaver or, like somebody that's about to die and see if we can bring JFK to life in somebody else's body.
Experiment. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There you go. My opinion for entertainment purposes, but there you go. JFK's brain is missing, and which is also another odd thing though too. Marilyn Monroe's body went missing after she died for like 6 hours.
Yeah, I think we all know what happened there.
Yeah. Some men had fun with that.
Yeah. No.
It did go missing for 6 hours, though.
Yeah,
it did.
They're not doing anything after she was dead.
People do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Men do that.
Well, yeah.
Men don't care.
I don't know about that.
Because all rapists and murderers probably do that after they're dead.
But there you go.
There's a term for it. Like there's a term called necrophilia. There's a reason for it.
I don't think that. I mean, I can see where maybe some guy, whatever.
Yep.
For entertainment purposes only. I think his brother having something done with the brain sounds feasible to me.
Yeah, to cover up, but also
it sounds kind of like the family's kind of way of thinking.
Yeah,
yeah. I was thinking somebody ate it.
Well, and plus we know that half his brain was blown away.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I mean, she literally they all had brain matter all over them. Yeah. So they probably took it. So,
or some new medical worker at the National Archives is like, "Oh, what is this?" Toss it in the trash.
Right. Right.
So.
Wow.
But there you go. JFK's brain has never been found. It's still nobody knows where it went after the National Archives.
Wow, that's interesting. That JFK, because I'm working on another story. It's endless. The stories you can do on that.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah. It is the first. I mean, that's the first big conspiracy theory that people actually started to question things.
Yeah, question the government, question what really happened.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Cass, let's hear a song for the week.
She's got a good one. I can see it on her face.
Well, this is probably one of the most recent releases that I've ever done. But it is a band that I've, of course, found on TikTok. And this song was only released in January of 2023. So just
recently.
Ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's a band that got really popular on TikTok in January. And their name is Sleep Token. And this is their song Granite. And they are considered kind of like a hard metal rock band. But they have a very synthetic, funky sound to them as well, which I've been obsessed with lately. But specifically this song Granite, I see a lot of people using the sounds as kind of like a sexy, it's about, a come on basically. And it's not. If you read the lyrics, it's very much about a very toxic relationship. Some of the lyrics indicate that maybe they are one of the partners in the relationship is trying to kill themselves and their partner, talking about leaving themselves on the roadways, that there's glass on the streets. So clearly that they are trying to, end the relationship in probably the craziest way. So yeah, it's very much a toxic relationship song, and to see people kind of use it as a sexy time song, it seems so weird to me and creepy. Yeah, I really love this song. I will say that for sure. I listen to the song almost daily. But it is very much about a toxic relationship.
I don't know what song it is, and I'm wondering if I've heard it before.
So this one hasn't gotten as popular as probably the one that started it. So they have a song called The Summoning, which came out in January. And it blew up on TikTok, or at least my TikToks. I don't know where our TikToks kind of merged, Jeff.
Yeah.
But The Summoning became a huge, huge song. And it is very much this one, I would say Summoning is definitely a sexy time song. It's definitely about need and wants. Where this one, I think people kind of, because they sound very similar, think they're about the same things. But Definitely
Right.
is.
Wow.
Yeah, but if you have time to listen to them, I would take a listen. They have become an obsession of mine.
Yeah. Who is the band again?
It's called Sleep Token.
Sleep Token.
And I think they've been around for a couple years, but this is like kind of their big moment. And they are kind of theatrical. I don't know, Dad, if you don't really like theatrical bands very much.
No.
But they do tend to be on the theatrical side. They are all anonymous players. So all of their identities are anonymous, which I kind of like. They've explained that they do it just so that nobody's caught up in who's leaving the band, who's in the band, who's, going somewhere, which obviously in a lot of big bands, that's a big deal and drama. So I do really like them. But that's your song for the week, Granite by Sleep Token.
Okay. All right. Let's get going with your story this week. Because we could go on about Patty and Janice.
I know. I could go on and on and on, but we do have a murder to discuss today.
Murder.
So it's my week, and I decided to be a little bit selfish, a little bit narcissistic, because this is the murder of Cassie Jo Stoddard. You remember this?
No.
So this was actually dubbed the Scream-inspired murder.
Yep.
So this happened in September of 2006. Cassie was staying at her uncle and aunt's house. She was house sitting for them, watching their dogs and cats while they were away. And this was in Bannock County, Idaho. And she was basically staying there, I think over the weekend, basically Friday through Sunday, maybe. And she was 16 at this time. Everybody in this story is 16, which is crazy to think about.
And long lines with Scream.
Yes, well, exactly. Unfortunately, that was the point. But so Cassie's staying at her aunt and uncle's house alone. And the first night she's there, she invites her boyfriend Matthew Beckham. She invites him to stay, not to stay over for the night, but basically to come and watch movies until he has to go home. And they also invite their two friends, Brian Draper and Tori Adamick. They all come to this house to watch TV, watch movies for the night. But before they've even finished the movie, Brian and Tori decide that they want to go see a movie at their local theater. They don't want to stay at the house anymore. So the two friends leave. And so now it is just Cassie Jo and her boyfriend Matt at the house. And shortly after the boys leave, strange noises start coming from the basement. The dogs that they were dog sitting kept going to the basement stairs and growling and barking at something that was downstairs. And the power went out. But it kept like flickering basically. It would go out for like a couple minutes, come back on, go out, come back on. Obviously, this all was very upsetting to Cassie Jo and Matt. They were both very scared about what was going on, but neither of them went to the basement to check out what was going on. They kind of just stayed in the main level and tried to, stay calm.
I got a question. What was the movie they were watching?
They were watching, this was on Wikipedia, so it could be a completely different story. Who knows? But apparently they were watching Kill Bill 2.
Oh, okay.
So, not Scream. But, so all this stuff's happening. They're very concerned, but they don't want to check it out. They just decide to stay in the living room.
Kill Bill came out
And they don't
90s,
think
right?
that it's those two boys.
So this happened in 2006.
Right.
Scream came out in the 90s.
Yes. No, it didn't inspire Scream. They were inspired by Scream.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. I made
the first few times I heard the story, I thought it was the same thing. I thought it was Scream was inspired by this.
Was also based off
Scream was inspired by murders, but that is a different thing. That was in Florida,
Wait a minute.
I believe.
Was the aunt they were watching her house, was that Jamie Lee Curtis?
No, that's Halloween.
That's a completely different franchise in general. That's Halloween.
Whole different thing.
Whole different franchise. Back to the murder.
The two boys left and went to the movies. Then they didn't think that it was the two friends pulling pranks on them.
Okay, let's get back because the timeline.
Let me tell a story.
So yeah, Kill Bill threw me off. Now we get it. This murder was inspired by the movie Scream. So this happened in 2006. Yes. Gotcha.
The Scream movie came out in 1996. This was in 2006. This was inspired by the movie Scream, which will make sense at the end of this. But so all this stuff's happening. Matt and Cassie are worried. Matt actually decides to call his mom and ask, can he stay over with Cassie Joe at this house? She's very upset. She's very scared. She doesn't want to be alone. But the mom is kind of uncomfortable with two 16-year-olds staying alone at the house by themselves for a couple days.
Story before. Yeah, right.
But she also offers Cassie, she says, no, you cannot stay at the house alone. But Cassie, you can come home with us, stay the night at our house, and then we'll bring you back in the morning. Which, I mean, is fair. Like, she's house sitting, but she doesn't really have to sleep over there. She's just kind of making sure the pets are fed and can go to the bathroom. But unfortunately, she declines. She feels very responsible that she has to stay at the house. That's what she promised her aunt and uncle she would do. So unfortunately, Matt's mom comes and picks him up at 10:30 p.m. And they leave Cassie alone in the house. And Matt actually tries to call his friends Brian and Tori. I don't know if he tried to call them when all this stuff was happening, but he tries to call them as soon as he leaves the house. And they do pick up, but he says that they are very quiet and whispering, and he thinks that they're still at the movies, and that's why they're whispering on the phone. They can't obviously talk to him.
Because 2006 texting wasn't a huge thing at that time.
No, you still had to basically call.
Listeners, there you go. A little background.
In 2006, I was in middle school, and I had a phone that you had to pay per text. So we just basically called your friends.
Yes. Yeah.
But so Matt leaves. He tries to contact Cassie multiple times the next couple days. She doesn't answer. He cannot get in contact with her at all. And it is not until Cassie Joe's aunt and uncle return home where they find Cassie brutally murdered in the house. They found her she was stabbed to death. She had approximately 30 stab wounds, 12 of which would have been fatal. So 12 of the stab wounds were at least fatal, and they stabbed her multiple times more than that. Police investigated the crime, and as early as September 27th. So this happened September 22nd. And then she wasn't discovered until maybe the 24th, 25th. And on September 27th, both Tori and Brian were brought into the police station for questioning, where they were shortly arrested. Because both boys quickly turned on each other and said that the other had manipulated them into murdering Cassie Joe at the house.
Oh.
Yes. What they did was, while Matt and Cassie Joe were distracted, one of them went down into the basement and unlocked the door while they were still there. And then after they left, they snuck back into the house. And what they had done is the noises that they were making, basically they kept trying to get the dogs to come downstairs, turning the power off. What they were doing was they were trying to lure both Matt and Cassie down into the basement where they were going to murder them.
Wow.
Yes. They had this whole plan. And even after Matt left, they have now come forward and basically told their entire story. Even after Matt left, they kept trying to mess with Cassie, kept trying to lure her down into the basement, but she wouldn't go. And so they waited until she fell asleep, and then they went upstairs, basically threw a bunch of stuff around so she would wake up, and then proceeded to like kill her. Why? And
what's wrong with them?
So both boys, like I said, turned on each other and were basically saying that I didn't believe we were actually going to kill Cassie. I thought we were just going to mess around. But again, they had real knives. They stabbed her 30 times. So I don't know. They talk about it like they were just acting. They didn't believe that anything was going to actually happen. But there's clear intent whether or not they believe that was going to happen, because Brian was the first one to lead police to basically where they had ditched all the evidence, which was their clothes. They wore masks while they were in the house.
Were they the scream masks?
They were not the scream masks, but they were white masks with basically red paint that looked like blood in them.
Mm-hmm.
They ditched their weapons there, their bloody clothes. And with all this evidence, they ditched their video camera recorder because they had filmed the week prior and after Cassie's murder. Maybe they had filmed the murder, I don't know, but that video has never been released or talked about. But they were two people who loved film, and they loved watching film. They loved making their own films. And so they decided to record their entire week up until the murder, where they talked about finding victims, who they were going to kill, what they were going to do. And then the day of the murder, they are seen driving in a video where they are talking to themselves about that they have found their perfect victim. And unfortunately, it just happens to be their friend Cassie Jo. Because all the video leading up to this, they were clearly friends with her. She was clearly comfortable with them. She's in multiple of the videos, talking to them, goofing around with them. And so she's clearly a friend of theirs. They're a friend of hers. And unfortunately, they had to pick her because she was at this house alone. So it was the perfect setup. So it just unfortunately happened to be her. And then the next video they show is them in the car after they have stabbed Cassie Jo as they're driving away. And I think this is really, both boys have basically tried to pull some sob story about how they didn't want to kill Cassie. They didn't know what they were doing. But this video clearly shows both of them very invigorated, very happy about what they've done. They're congratulating each other. They're talking about how cool they feel. So whether or not you were manipulated into doing it, you clearly thought it was a cool motive, you know?
What the heck?
Yeah. And they say, both boys to this day claim that they did it because they were inspired by the movie Scream, which features two boys who murder their classmates and do it because they are violent behaviorists. And they also claim to do it because of they were inspired by the Columbine Massacre, which had happened in 1999, just 7 years earlier, where the boys videotaped themselves talking about bullying and finding victims and being God. So that was, they were both inspired by, I think they even said like Ted Bundy and a bunch of other serial killers, but these were like basically the two examples that clearly you can see where they use these methods in their ideology.
Crazy.
And Tori to this day claims that he is innocent. He didn't know what he was doing. His family stands behind him. I guess if you want to believe it.
How does he not know what he's doing?
That's what I don't. He says that he was just acting. He thought they were just acting like it was a movie. They were filming a scary movie. I don't believe it. I just don't. With either of the boys, I don't believe it at all.
I can't imagine somebody not knowing what they were doing when they specifically went into the home, unlocked doors, and planned it. I mean, it was a planned murder.
Right. Right. Well, that's exactly what they were charged for. They were charged for conspiracy to commit murder as well as first-degree murder. Both boys are serving life in prison. So they got life in prison for first-degree murder, and then they also got 30 years to life for conspiracy to commit murder. And both boys currently are not able. They are not able to do parole. They have no possibility of parole. Unfortunately, though, because they were, like I said, they were both 16 at the time of this murder. The Supreme Court ruled in, I think, 2012 and 2016. There's two different cases that said that life without parole convictions for juveniles is unjust. So they may be able to, because they were juveniles at the time of their conviction and their life without parole hearings, they may be able to at some point in the future kind of get parole and go to trial and make money to that.
I would hope not, because if they had those kind of mind schemes at 16, what do you think that?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And even now at their age, they're still sticking with their story.
I don't know too much about Brian, but Tori is sticking to his story that Brian manipulated him. He didn't want to do it. All this stuff. I think even some people still to this day think that Matthew was involved with the murder. Clearly he could have. I don't know. Like I don't think he was, because on the tapes they don't just talk about Cassie. They do talk about killing Matt. So I don't think he was involved. But some people believe that because he was friends with these two boys, like clearly he would have known that they were doing something. Clearly he would have known that they were thinking about these things. But I don't think so too much. Who knows? But I don't think he's as guilty as the two boys.
Wow. That's a horrible story.
It's a horrible story. And unfortunately, it's common occurrence, I think. I don't really stand behind the video games and movies make people violent. I think people see certain ideologies that they want to see, and they just kind of run with it. Which I think, what is so funny to me about this is that they use Scream, and the whole point of Scream is about two boys who use these kind of ideologies to kill their schoolmates, but then they don't really understand that the consequences of their actions. And the point of them being violent was that they were in fact violent before the movies.
Oh my God.
And these boys had no history of violence, no mental issues.
I mean, I don't know that, and this was early 2000s. You didn't really talk about, not
recorded what they are now either.
Right. Well, and it's, that kind of, I feel like that was for being in I was in middle school at the time, so I was a little bit younger, but that kind of behavior of being film bros and oh, we're gonna make a movie, we're gonna make a scary movie, we're gonna do all this crazy stuff. It was very common, and I know for a fact that I pulled this prank, not this prank in general because I didn't know about it, but I pulled this prank on people before.
Wait. I remember somebody in school making a video.
I know.
Similar to this.
So it's not like it was uncommon behavior. I did this. I made videos like these. I pranked a friend where I hid in the basement and kept turning the lights off on them. I had no idea that had happened. I think this was after the murder. So
somebody was running for their lives in the woods or something like that.
Yep.
Do you have those movies? Do you have those
movies? They've got to be somewhere. I don't know where, but they do have to be somewhere. Because I made hard copies.
Yeah, I was going to say, would they be on one of those CDs?
They would. There'd be a hard copy, but I also think I had a hard drive in college that I just gotta find. It's got to be somewhere that had all my projects on it.
Wow.
I kind of agree with you though too. I was just looking up you know, like really, again, like it was 2006. That was like a good between like 90, I think. Oh yeah, Scream came out in 96. There was I Know What You Did Last Summer, and you know, like sequels to those movies. But like between 1995, 96 through like 2006, there's a huge, like tons of scary movies that came out during that time, like the Blair Witch Project, The Ring, The Grunge, Saw. So yeah, this is, and they were all very like sinister
Indie.
and
Indie. So like that was the thing, like with these movies, like it was very much a like you could just go out and film it in your backyard kind of feeling.
Blair
So there were
Witch
so many
Project.
people doing that at the time. So yeah, it wasn't uncommon behavior. I think it was just whether or not you actually thought you could get away with murder kind of thing. And which the boys talk about in one of their videos prior to the murder, is that they talk about that they don't believe murder should be illegal because it, you know, and it's like all this like deranged ideology of it shouldn't be illegal because I want to do it kind of thing. And I think they even say, like, you can't tell me not to do something.
What's wrong with people thinking that they can take somebody else's lives?
Yeah,
and not
insane.
How
be
long have they
accountable
been
for
friends
it?
with this Cassie? Their whole lives, or
so I don't know how long. So they're all in 11th grade. So at least I don't know how other like high schools work. I don't know. Because like ours, it's like, you know, everybody in your hometown kind of thing.
So like, I know, like, because I agree. We grew up and went to a small town high school where you knew everybody. But like Matt, he went to, like, obviously you like went to a specific elementary school, and then he, based on where you lived, went to a specific middle school. And so like friends that he had in middle school never followed him into high school because it's all like geographic on, like, they had multiple high schools. So based off of where you were in the district, you went to that specific school. But like Matt, when he was in Arizona, he went to Cactus Shadows high school, and he had like 1,500 kids in the high school. That's like our whole town. You know, like, you don't know every single person in the town. You know, you may know a good majority of them, but you don't know a lot of them.
Yeah, when you guys graduated, I literally knew every single kid.
Right.
You know, so you would have known, you would have grown up with these people. Unless they just moved into the neighborhood or something.
Well, and that's, so I don't know about Matt and Tori, but it does say that Brian moved from Utah to Idaho. And I think that's why Tori kind of keeps up with this story of Brian was the manipulator. And it seems like maybe he was like the new kid in town, basically, and they became friends. And Brian sparked this ideology within Tori, which, again, I just don't believe. I haven't watched any interviews with Tori where I felt like he was in any way remorseful about what happened.
Yeah.
Even in recent interviews, it doesn't. There's just like this thing where I feel like psychopaths think that they're being remorseful, that they're showing like a remorseful attitude, and it's just not there. It's just not clicking. And that's what I feel like when I watch him.
There's nothing alive behind the eyes.
Right. Like there's no depth there. It's all surface.
Even in some of the videos and pictures, he's holding up like a gun. Like, you know, it's like, who does that except for crazy people that have no.
It was the time. Like that's the thing, is like all the pictures I see, it's so reminiscent of every person I've ever known. You know,
back in that time,
right. It was just that kind of wild child, very like Jersey Shore and like the bad kids get the popularity kind of ideology. So I don't, nothing about them seemed out of character until this to me.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And I don't know that Matt would have had anything to do with it. Like you said, he was scared and asking his mom if they could come home.
Right. I don't think so. There are people who believe
but if she would have went, then they probably.
And I know he was questioned by the police as well.
For you guys, okay. So if Matt was that concerned, wouldn't he have been calling her that night? You know,
he did. He did. He tried to call her multiple times, and I think he even tried to go to the house, but all the doors were locked.
Okay. And then you said
I don't know that for sure.
2 days. She wasn't found for 2 days.
Couple
that's
days,
because her aunt and uncle.
I know.
Yeah, why
but I'm
didn't Matt
saying
go
if
back
he's so
over there?
concerned for her safety and wanted to stay there, because it'd be like you don't let 2 days go by and not talk to her. You know what I'm saying?
Don't know. You remember this is a 16-year-old kid, right? Like,
I can kind of see it.
The mom. It seems like the mom would be going like, "Hey, we should check on Cassie. Remember, she was scared and wanted to do."
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, that's pretty pathetic that you'd let him go 2 days.
Like nothing.
Concerned about let him go 2 days and not even hear from him.
Well, again, this is a 16-year-old kid, and also even though they called to the mom and her saying, you can stay, like it probably to her just seemed like she was scared to be alone,
right?
Like all the noises and like
and
there's
being in an unfamiliar home,
right, and it's someone's
even
home.
In our home.
I can remember kids wanting people to stay here because of emergency. Like I'm like, no, not gonna happen.
Right, exactly.
4-wheel drive. I'll get them home.
Right.
So I can see you're going. Like,
actually believe something so sinister is going to happen. Like I think that mom was probably just like, "There's nothing wrong. Like it's just them being teenagers."
Teenagers
wanting to, he just wants to spend the night there.
Right. Exactly. Oh, 100%. That's what she thought.
I could have seen us doing that. You can come with us, so I'll make sure that you stay on the other side of the house myself.
Right. Right.
But you're not. You can't go stay there for the night. No.
Right. And I think that's what she thought. And that's, again, like the 2 days thing, I don't know exactly the time frame. It could have been 2 days or one, Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of thing.
And why didn't Cassie call her mom?
I don't know. It doesn't say anything about that. Maybe there's another article I could have read, but again, I think it's that thing too, that I think there was a sense of pride in Cassie that, she didn't want to go, she didn't want to leave the house. It was her responsibility to stay there. And it was probably this is my chance to show my parents and my aunt and uncle that I'm responsible and I can do this alone and I can, do this. And so calling her parents would have been, oh, I can't do it. Yeah. Right. I remember the first time I was allowed to stay home alone and I called you guys and I was like, oh, I'm a failure. I can't deal with this one thing. I'm too scared to stay home alone, which I was 13 at the time, but
yeah, and then the next year you were driving him up to Mackinac Island.
It's that sense of failure. If I call him, it's, if I call him, it's not just in my head. That's probably what, if it would have been me, it would have been, it's just in my head. I'm just
When you were 13 and called us, was there a tornado involved in that?
There was a tornado involved.
There was a tornado because
there was a tornado involved, but it's still I should have been able to handle it,
But I was gone, and I'm like, Cassie, are you okay?
We were in the basement in a wine cellar.
Yeah.
With other people, and we were because we had to go down there because of the tornado, and then you called, and we're like, yeah, we're in the basement in the wine cellar, so good luck. You can handle it. Go downstairs.
You'll be okay.
Just me and Sadie,
we were such bad parents.
Well,
I was ready to drive home, and you told me not to.
I know. We've never had a touchdown, so it was all of us just being crazy. But
we did have a touchdown.
No, we didn't.
It knocked the tree down in Tanya and Bill's house.
That was a different time. That was a different time.
Time, though, it was a bad storm because the place we were at
wouldn't let us out of the cellar.
And there was a bunch of us, and they said you have to go down to the cellar because there's a tornado out there. And it was out where they kept all their liquor. So we were like, oh, this is great. And then you called, I'm scared there's a tornado. We're like, yeah, just go down to the basement. It's too dangerous for us to leave.
What are we supposed to do? But I do I do remember like staying home alone other than that time. And like our house especially made like a lot of weird noises. Like it sounded like somebody was like opening and shutting the slider door all the time when you were in the basement. So like I get it, like, you know, it's just in my head, like it's just this or it's just that or it's just me being concerned. Yeah, but and I think she did almost the right thing of like, I'm not going to go down in the basement. Like I'm just not going to do it. Like, whether or not I lose the power, I'm just going to stay here and stay where I feel comfortable. Because again, that was their plan. Like their plan was to lure both of them into the basement and kill them there. So I think, you know, it was just two really terrible people who did something really terrible and now are kind of trying to claim innocence and, you know, that they're, you know, young and impressionable teens kind of thing, which I just, again, like this is all normal behavior, but it's that like whether or not you're psychotic enough to believe that you should get away with murder is that switch of like, this is what is normal and this is what you did kind of thing.
Yeah. And they feel that they didn't do anything wrong.
Well, it's not that. I don't think that they believe, like, they are considered remorseful, and they are, Tori especially has done a lot of interviews where he has claimed his innocence and he's claimed his regret. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe that if they hadn't gotten caught, I don't believe they wouldn't have come forward and been remorseful. I think that they were proud to do it. And they thought they were going to get away with it.
Wow.
That's sad. Crazy kids. Crazy people. I mean, the world's getting worse and worse every day.
Yeah.
I feel really bad for her. Where was this?
This was in Idaho. Which I hate to point out, a lot of our big murder cases are in Idaho.
Yeah. What's in their soils?
Not corn.
Well, and then that one kid moved from Utah. What kind of issues did he have before he moved?
They don't. Nothing's ever really talked about, so it's probably not as big a deal. But I mean, they're teenagers.
They were probably drinking
drinking, probably smoking weed. Like I'm sure there was, you know, some substances there, but it's nothing that they talk about. So I don't think it's anything that they find to be important enough in the case.
Then even if she was high and drunk and passed out, she's still a victim.
Well, but even in the opposite, you know, they can't claim that, oh, we were drunk, we didn't know what we were doing. Oh, we were high, we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah, right.
There's like, that's just not enough reason to say, oh yeah, totally fine, cool, you killed somebody, that's cool.
Right.
It's all fun and games until somebody gets killed.
You know, researching this case, there was a lot of moments of me being like, you know what? I did that. I just didn't go as far as actually killing my friends when I was doing these things.
Oh, God.
But maybe they thought I was pretty psychotic. Because, again, when I was in high school doing this stuff was after this murder. So maybe my friends were just like, Jesus Christ, you're psychotic. Could be. Could be.
No, we're not going to be in your movie.
Right. Like, nobody really did ever want to be in the movies. I had to force a lot of my friends to do that. So, but there you go. That is, unfortunately, the murder of Cassie Jo Stoddard.
Wow. Well,
that is my story for the week.
Another murder.
Another murder.
Stay tuned until next week.
That. I know. Keep doing those. I did think about maybe doing something like paranormal, but
yeah, I have a list of like things that I'm looking to work on, you know, for stories. But I think we've got a good
murder base.
Yeah, and so I was thinking that too. Like maybe I'll I'll change it up a little bit. Do something that's more paranormal or alien-ish. I keep trying to talk Matt into it because, he watches Ancient Aliens and he keeps talking about, all these things. And I'm like, you should be a guest on a show and you can do 1 week where you talk about whatever you want,
And what movies did you get inspired by doing murder mystery shootings?
What were you inspired on making movies?
What movies did you thought that you had to do murder?
There's 2 different movies that I did in high school that involved murder. But one of them was inspired by Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is the one Dad is talking about. Where we had our friends running through a field while we chased them with a camera. And my friend's uncle, who worked in a haunted house, so he was literally dressed up in character.
His haunted house character.
His haunted house, like Matt, he had a mask and a bloody apron on, and a fake machete, and he was just chasing after these kids in the dark Michigan night in a field.
Oh my gosh. That had to have been at Janelle Bean's house.
No, that was at, I won't name him, but it was at somebody's house.
Yeah. Crazy.
That's what I'm saying. Like, all this stuff, like I was doing that when I was a teenager. I just didn't actually kill anybody.
I know, but it was just for fun.
But that's what I mean. Like, people probably saw this and thought they were just having
just having fun. They were making
back then.
A lot of the videos that they have of them planning this murder is at school, so somebody had to have overheard them, and they were just like, "Haha, so funny."
Or they showed the video footage, like, "Hey, watch this."
Right.
Yeah, and again, this was Blair Witch Project. This was a lot where the scary movies or the thrillers and all that were
brand new,
similar to that Blair, where they were like documentary style.
Right.
You know,
it was the age of kind of indie, like you didn't have to have a lot. Yeah, right. You didn't have to have a lot of money to do it, so you could just film it on a regular camera. Quality didn't matter.
Right, with Paranormal Activity, at least,
in the murders that we have today. I mean,
well, these films are still being done. Like, this kind of filming is still being done today.
There's another murder very similar to this, now that you think about it, and it was a girl that her friends she grew up with, 3 of them pushed her off a bridge, and they were making a movie. I
don't know about pushing off the bridge, but there's the Slender Man killing.
Yeah, that one was where they went into the woods. But that was younger girls. That was like 13-year-olds.
Yeah, young girls.
It was 3 guys that she grew up with. They were really good friends, and she inherited a bunch of money. And they killed her for this money, but they and pushed her off this bridge. But they made a movie they made it into a movie. Which they kind of, told how it happened. It was weird. But they were making a movie, just like you said, Yeah.
I think I think all that stuff is just the age we live in. I think Ted Bundy and, the Zodiac Killer probably would have done the same things if they had access to, like, technology like that to videotape themselves.
Weird.
Probably.
Because that's I'm not a psychiatrist, I'll put that out there, but it's like that's the psychopathic mentality of, like, I'm special and what I do is important. And so they're, like, videotaping themselves because of that, like, narcissistic tendency of, like, I'm the star of the show kind of thing. So I think why we're seeing more videotapes like this, or people, like, writing these, like, manifestos basically, is because of the notoriety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we would have seen it if in a lot of older famous serial killers, if the technology had been there.
If they had the technology.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yep. instead of drawing in their notebooks, they'd be.
Well, hopefully that we can.
Or making curtains out of nipples.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Are we all set tonight?
I think so.
So
That was
yeah,
a great story, Cass.
Any
that
final
was.
words?
What?
No final words?
No, great story. Great
Okay,
side
everybody.
conversations.
Thanks for stopping in tonight. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it. Okay?
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Alexa played the Family School of Thought.